Welcome back to the Queer Economy, where we celebrate LGBTQ plus people around the world as they impact business, culture, community, and more. I'm your host, Ben Fernie, and today we're joined by Bree Smith, a queer poet building community through intentional writing. She's the author of the book From Burn to Bloom. She's done incredible work with corporate organizations and just so many elements to Bree's story. So Bree, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Bree and I first met in China in, I think, 2013. And if there's one thing really I want to say to introduce Bree, people often say that you remember people most by the way they make you feel. And Bree lives up to that 1000%. I have not seen her in probably a whole decade, but I still remember feeling so safe around her. And while we were both in different elements of our journeys of authenticity and being our wonderful queer selves and all the elements of life, my memory of Bree is when I'm around Bree, I'm safe, I can be myself, and I can have fun. So, Bree, I freaking love you. I'm so glad that you're here, and there's so many things to talk about. Did I miss anything in my introduction of you?
No, but you're gonna make me cry already. And I know we connected before recording and stuff, but yeah, again, what a beautiful life and how things have brought us together and at that stage in life too that we met and then where we're at now. Yes, it's been over a decade that we've actually seen each other, but how much has happened since that time, but also feeling so connected. So thank you for that reflection and right back at you, babe, because yeah, a lot has happened, and thank God we're at now. And also, we were so cute and closeted and sweet back then too, and glad we're where we're
Bless
at
our
now.
hearts.
Bless our hearts,
Yeah.
sweet baby angels. Yeah,
So fun to look back and see growth.
thank
And
God. Yeah,
obviously, your book, your story, all of that, I think really paints a beautiful picture of that. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit with us about your queer journey and your journey with identity.
God. Yeah, I mean, woof. Right? How do you package your identity of 33 years into one question of 30 seconds? So yeah, queerness, identity, maybe the best way to put this, and I really appreciate you reflecting, that feeling of safety and funness with me. I'm going to just kind of share a little bit of what I find myself in now and how that's kind of led to all of that I am, that is my queerness and my identity. So I find myself I am a permission giver, a truth tether. I am a word alchemist. I am a leadership coach. What I do is I really help people speak what's true, feel what's real, and lead from the inside out. So my work and also so much of what I find myself in is at the intersection of story, of soul, of self leadership. And I'm really guiding people. But when I say guiding people, that also starts with myself of coming back to their truth, coming back to language that liberates. And I'm sharing that because that's really such a core tied to my own experience, my queerness, my identity. I don't think my experience or story is very uncommon, and yet it is uncommon because we still are in a society where we're not talking about the realness and the vulnerabilities and the very intimate things that make us who we are. And so there's a lot of isolation and aloneness and loneliness happening in the world. And we are in this connection epidemic that is really dangerous. And it's getting so much worse because of technology and everything like that. So coming back to a few things that, I say, I have so many freaking isms. It's nauseating. So just buckle up for that. But for me being, born, I'm the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest grandchild. I was born in a very conservative family religion and Davis County, Utah, Mormon girl. And, everyone around me is of this religion. And I joke all the time that I was born in this very conservative bubble, but I came out of the womb with a pair of scissors in my hand with a life mission to pop that bubble. And I say too that I've kind of been living this double life since I was 6 years old. It was a very confusing experience where I was very much wanting to be the good girl, and I'm the oldest, and better, do better, and get the good grades. And this is what it means to be a good girl, sitting on the pew and responsible and all of those things. But also this fire in my belly that just had this kind of roar within her, but was taming herself all the time or being tamed. I think my parents were very afraid of that fire. And that wasn't so much their fault in a lot of ways, right? But being afraid of that, what do? Is they try to tame it more rather than let it ignite, and then it can actually be a campfire rather than a forest fire. So I think my parents thought I was really rebellious. I actually don't think I was that rebellious, but it just came out in these ways because there wasn't really healthy channels for it to be able to come out otherwise. I think being queer but not having the safety and ability to express and identify and find that out, it's confusing where it's I know that there's something different happening, but I don't have the language or labels or identity to be able to express it or know it. So I didn't even know what gay was until I was like 18. How can I create meaning around what's happening for me if I don't have anything to relate it to? I'm a very friendly, a very vibrant, very like talk with my hands and present myself in this way. So like I take up a lot of space. And so I think also people, because I seem very confident, I also seem very happy. Right. And so
Mhm.
again, from a like this double life. Like I'm a very happy person. I am very vibrant and friendly. And I also have a very deep sadness within me and a very like feeling very deeply and very empathetic and like can feel the weight of the world simultaneously while also experiencing so much joy from a fat bumblebee that I see on a walk. Right. And I'm sharing that of there was so much that was within me that didn't know how to be expressed. And I think I was walking in my life pretty numb for a long time or just had no idea how to even like if I went into the harder parts or the more uncomfortable parts, it was too scary. Like, and I didn't know how to express it. And in my household
Yeah.
too, like it was kind of a little different for me. I think a lot of women usually aren't allowed to express or have anger, where in my household, anger was like the only emotion that was shown. It was like I was either happy or I was pissed. I didn't have any space to experience like the grief or the sadness or anything. So, anyway, so I'm sharing that of like just it had this like kind of push pull experience. And again, where like this fire was within me, but still wanted to be a good girl. I was living this life of like, I'm going to do things my way, but it's still going to be your way. But I'm making it seem like it's my way, but it's still your freaking way. How this presented itself is like still trying to be the good oldest child. So I went on a mission, even though I didn't want to. But it was like my last stitch to be like, okay, I'm going to, if I can do this, I'll be Mormon and they'll be proud of me. And it was my mission that made me realize that the church wasn't true and I couldn't do it. And it almost killed me. It was like my mission made me realize like this isn't right. But then it broke me. And I was experiencing this deep sadness, but I had nowhere to turn to of like, oh, this isn't right for me. But if I admit that it's not right for me, then I'm just as bad as the other people. I didn't let myself actually experience that it wasn't right. And so I continue to still be operating basically within the confines of the church, but still doing it my way. Then fast forward, almost a decade later, here I am. No, I'm not in the church, but I am married to a man and I am a bonus mom and I literally have a home with a white picket fence and everything. And the day I realized I was gay was the day I came out to my now ex. And it was again this like realization of, oh my God, I am still living and operating in the confines of what I was told and still like what I should do. And even like being a step parent of like, I didn't want to be a mom. So let me have a stepchild. So I'm not actually being a mom, but I'll give you a kid. So I'm sharing that of like just how much I didn't have like language or understanding, or I was living this double life because I didn't have this permission to actually feel or label or name what was actually happening. So I didn't come out until I was like 29 and I was truly asleep to what that was for such a long time. And that's a whole nother story for that. And to tie it back as far as identity and queerness is for me, writing, creativity, poetry was the portal for me remembering myself, finding myself again. That again came later in life because I was so asleep to myself. And it was this experience of like, I had this huge, like upheaval at 21 years old where I kind of buried what happened to me and just kind of stuffed it down. And then here I am a decade later having it again. And I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not going to just like bury this down and act like it didn't happen again. I'm going to walk forward in a way where I'm talking about this. We're going to talk about what's actually happening for us and within us because actually like this is all more similar to each other than it is different. You asked me one question and I just spent 15 minutes answering that, but like anyway, that's my queer story and identity. Ben, you got time for one more question. I
That was
told you I was worried. I was like, I'm so excited for this interview. Time though? Let's see this.
yeah. But what I love about it is I think it gives us such a peek into how intentional you're living. And I think you mentioned something about being loud, using your hands a lot, taking up space. And I think there's really something beautiful about when you take up that space and you are kind of a louder person. One of the gifts that comes from that is you understand space. You understand what kind of energy you bring to the space because in a lot of ways people rely on it.
Hmm.
But then that helps you then know how to create safe spaces and create permission giving
Yeah.
spaces like you've talked about.
I might be loud, but it's also like my loudness is also carrying like light too, of like I shine a big light, but it's also because like I'm shining it onto you and like come over here as well and like come under my wing or come next to me. And also I'm like your biggest freaking cheerleader, right? And like let me cast this net as wide as possible because like you matter and you're safe. Like I'm getting goosebumps by saying this, right? It's so scary to be vulnerable and honest and to share your stories. I mean, and especially when it comes to art and poetry and honesty and truth. Are you kidding me? That's terrifying. And it never gets easier. I want to shit my pants every time I do it, right? Like it's so scary. And yet I have to do it because to not do it is so much more scary because when we can give that permission and when we can really stay and like hold each other's cheeks and be like, I see you, I understand you, you matter, and you're safe. That's all we want. That's all I wanted my whole life. And that's all I hope that we can give to each other to just like survive this world. Not just survive this world, but like live in it and love in it and thrive in it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the story you just told, there's a couple moments where, all right, got to put my head down, got to be the good girl on the pew, got to be, X, Y, and Z. But then it hits that breaking point where you're like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. It's time for me to step forward in the way that I know I need to, not in the way that I feel I should.
Yeah. And it like it truly was like killing me, right? Like it was causing real like physical pain and where I take so much accountability too is I wasn't kind. Like I wasn't being with my ex and everything too. Like I wasn't my best self towards him. Like of course and even though it was a really like pretty awful divorce and pretty like volatile in a lot of ways too. Like, I think that there was so much of like me setting him free of like, you deserve to experience love because this never was love. And that's not fair to you. Right. And no one deserves to be in that situation. And like, when we aren't actually like in our own selves, like, we're also not able to like give that outside of ourselves either. And that's a prison that I never want to be in again, nor do I want anyone else to be in either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a prison that in some cases isn't locked or
Yeah.
you hold the key,
The amount of poems I've written where I'm like, oh, it's a cage where it's like literally just two little lines here that I'm holding right here, and the key is in my freaking pocket. It's like actually not a cage, but I'm like holding just those. Oh yeah.
Huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because it's so easy to feel trapped, but it's important to recognize that the freedom that comes from authenticity and following your heart is just so powerful and it makes us better people.
Yeah, the resiliency that comes with it too, right? I don't ever want to go through what I did again, but just because we go through what we did doesn't mean that we like stuff it away. Similar with grief that we say, like rather than we never move on from grief, we find ways to move forward. And same thing with the experiences that we've had and what we have gone through is that we find ways to move forward with that. We carry our stories and our experiences as things that we are so proud of and so like grateful to have gone through because it is what is creating the beautiful mosaic masterpiece that we are now.
Ugh, I love that. So that's kind of on the personal side. And you talk about the journey of the perceived path versus the actual path that you go down to be happy and where life goes and what really resonates. I'd love to hear a little bit about your professional journey in that regard. What did that look like through where you're at today? I want to get to the writing stuff, but let's touch on just this professional side first and like this needs to chase versus what does that actually look like and what actually matters
So, I
with it.
mean, just my background, I again, where I have lived this life where still this other side of me has always been burning, right? So leadership has always been kind of my thing, right? And speaking and again, this like safety that you interacted with me in college and everything that was there, like I've always had that. So I did a lot of public speaking in college. I did a lot of leadership, like scholarships and programs and recruiting. And so it then unfurled in like my career where I did a lot of like recruiting. I actually worked in higher ed first doing recruiting, like with admissions and everything like that. Then it turned into working in tech, like onboarding. So welcoming all new hires, then like turning into like leadership development of developing leaders, executive coaching, and everything in between all of that. And at the root or like at the core of all of that too was really all around emotional intelligence, basically teaching people how not to be assholes at work and tying everything to like how when we are in integrity, when we are tying ourselves to our own personal values and also like company values and everything like that, when they are hand in hand, right? When we're leading and actually being leaders rather than managers, we are enjoying ourselves better and also work is better. And also it's really expensive to freaking hire people and fire people. So stop being an asshole and you can actually save money and also enjoy. It's just a win-win situation. Like I'm now doing my own thing of executive coaching, of keynote speaking, of facilitating. Like facilitating is a really big thing that I do too. Of all it comes back to again is like these roots of and core of like the human experience. But people need to have a safe container to be able to bring their honest selves, to bring their real situations. I do a lot of work around like diversity and belonging of like being honest of like, I'm not good at vulnerability. I'm not good, especially when it comes to we're just so messed up still. I'm going to go out. If we're still going to be in a capitalistic freaking society, corporate America is still existing, then I'm going to come in and infiltrate the system and make you all softies where we can be and see softness as a strength. And I'm going to create containers for you where you can come in and say, I've been operating as a robot because I was taught to be a robot and that's how we are efficient. Like we are not in the industrial revolution anymore on conveyor belts anymore. We're freaking humans that have tools now to do that for us because we don't stop being a human when we walk into the, world of work. How much I'm coaching or facilitating these conversations is we're rarely talking about work, right? We're rarely talking about, the kind of task of day to day. We're talking about the thing underneath the thing. And it all again comes down to, these emotional, very personal experiences and creating the safety for people to actually talk about those hard things and, finding resolution, confidence, resiliency, vulnerability, and courage to be able to model the behaviors that they want to have within themselves and also their team members. And so much of that is possible through the safety of connection and courage and bravery and vulnerability and also creativity. So anyway, so that's kind of like it took me on this road of doing that. And I was seeing that happen so much in the workspaces that kind of led me. And then also I'm having this experience of all this stuff happening for me personally with poetry in my own world. And so now they've kind of taken on this collision of I do a lot of coaching and keynote speaking, but there's a lot of bridging of like I do like storytelling workshops for team offsites where bringing more creativity into your work so you're actually liking your job more and also bringing more of your personal stories and your own experiences into the work that you have because like our stories are what make everyone connect to each other. And if it's a work thing too, like, and not that I'm like trying to make people sell more stuff, but truly like no one wants to actually buy like anything if they don't connect to it, if they don't relate to it. No one actually gives a shit about like the company's product. Like, yes, we can believe in some company's products like to some extent, but I actually care because it moved someone's life in some way and I want to hear that story about it, right? And I want to feel invested in it because of how it moved me and changed me. And I'm going to feel way more excited about my job because I have the safety and freedom to be personal enough about how my work and how my team and how my experiences day to day is impacting me. And I get to be creative around that. That's like everything. So if we're
Yeah.
still operating in this like freaking corporate America world, why not? Why not infuse creativity and connection and all of these things in that world that I do so much by night, but I'm also making possible by day too.
There's so much power in peeling back the layers, in workplaces where you don't feel connected and you can't be authentic, you cannot be creative. And
Mm-mm.
I've seen that from personal experience. I was blocked
Oh
from
yeah.
being creative and accessing the areas where I am really skilled
And it was
in.
like, and
So
it's that ripple effect I'm sure you were having too. Like the tasks were getting done, but like you weren't feeling excited about it. You weren't like creating solutions around it. And you might have been a little bit meh or like you didn't feel like yourself. And people were probably asking, like, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? We're not actually designed to be at a screen all day anyway. But if this is the world that we're living in, there are ways to still be able to have that kind of creativity. And we're not talking about like blowing shit up and having it be like it's not going to go anywhere. Like we can take little things and infuse it in a way where it like sparks us in a way. And then that has that positive ripple effect of like, if we're excited about something too, we're also connecting to each other. And then that's connecting to each other. And it's all so much better. And we're in this really frictiony state right now. Like we're in this tension that we have the opportunity to really lean to that way. But because it requires risk and something that's a little bit unknown, it's actually very known. It's actually in our bones. Like this is actually very intuitive for us, but because we've been told it's something different, we think that it's like risk aversive, but it's actually probably the healthiest, easiest, best thing for us to do.
So if there's someone listening and they're struggling to be creative at work, they're struggling to connect with work, or just in general in life, the combination of screen time plus the rat race, what kind of advice or what kind of practical things would you encourage someone to do to go back to that intuitive feeling and knowing those next steps?
I think our stories are the best thing to connect us to that intuition. How can we take the pause to like take a step aside and how can you infuse like your own energy. So like let's use an example of like this like project that has to get done for this product and all the team members had to like work really hard around it. You had to work more hours or whatever and it was exhausting, but you got it across the finish line and you were really proud of it. What was it that made that so meaningful? Like why was that like you were proud of it? And then dig into like put a microscope on it even more. Like what about it was is like, oh well, we were all brainstorming around this together and we bounced off ideas. Okay, go even deeper. What more about that was that okay, well, we were validating each other's like ideas and went even more with this. And then describe that even in more detail. And I'm using that as an example of like, okay, you being able to describe that also then gives you an opportunity of how can you bring that then into other spaces or things that you're doing and also like things that you really value in your own like day-to-day experience. Like I'm using that as an example of like that's telling me I really value brainstorming with other team members. I feel more connected to my team members. Maybe we need to still do the same kind of outcome or task, but the way of getting there can look different. And so we can find ways of doing it in this like kind of approach when we can just give a little bit of a pause and just allow stories and joy, like just really simple sparks of joy to come in, it actually allows a lot more like not just creativity, but actually more efficiency to come in.
And truly, like, it's amazing how much impact just slowing down intentionally
Yeah.
can be. Like, it's easy to feel like, oh, I'm slowing down when I'm scrolling on my phone or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. But like, fully pulling back the distractions and just sitting with yourself teaches you so many things.
And there are some benefits of scrolling in some ways, but like what you're doing is your brain is needing a break. Instead of scrolling and looking at your phone, stare at the wall. That's actually you telling yourself that you need to get bored for a minute. Do you know how much we need to be getting bored and we need to be using our imagination and daydreaming or stare at the grass? Like go put your feet in the grass and stare at the grass for a little bit. There's probably something stewing there waiting for you that could help you, whether it's with the task or maybe something else that you might make time for that might not be directly like related to your work but then is actually going to give you a bit more energy so that work can get done. And we justify these phone breaks, but we think that like zoning out or staring at a wall is bad when that is like the best thing that we could be doing for ourselves. The best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Go stare at a wall.
Go stare at a wall. Get bored.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, it's so important. Okay, let's connect it all to your writing because I know this is such a core part of what you do and you can hear it throughout what you just talked about. And I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from you in that regard. And I would love to hear a little bit of the spark, when the writing began, what that looks like, and where it's taken you now.
We've talked a little bit about creativity. We've talked a little bit about like joy, but think about when you were a child and think about what you did that just sparked that kind of joy. As kids, like we just had access to that all the time. And especially the word creativity, like that could be so many things, whether it's dancing or drawing or whatever that might be. And for me, like that was writing. I journaled so much when I was young because there was just something about like having these artifacts, right? And also like what 7-year-old like writes down a to-do list for her morning the next day? Like there was something of that act that was really meaningful for me. I didn't consider myself an artist. I didn't consider myself a creative because I was very much told that if it didn't have some sort of outcome, it wasn't worth doing. And then I also had a sister who's like, oh my God, like the most incredible musician in the entire world. Like she can hear something and then play it on the piano, like this natural talent, right? So I was also kind of told that I wasn't talented as like a writer or a poet. I carried this narrative because I didn't have a degree in literature. I couldn't be a writer because I only knew poetry to rhyme and I cannot rhyme. I couldn't be a poet. And I was also introduced to poetry a lot too that was like Shakespeare or like love her, Emily Dickinson, do love her, but half of it I'm like, sis, I can't grasp it. Like it didn't really resonate with me. And again, too, I was pretty like numbed out as well, too, that I don't think I was ready for it. Right. So for the majority of my life, I didn't consider myself a creative at all, which is like hilarious, by the way, because I am like, just like, look at me. Like I am just like, I embody creativity. I made that shelf. And like, I like make my Halloween costumes every year and everything. But it's so, again, I just want to give so much compassion and everything to like the stories and narratives that we carry that are the farthest from the truth, but they keep us from tapping into what's always within us, right? So then fast forward to the height of COVID, and I am like clawing at any type of feeling besides dread and despair. And I had a friend who introduced me to this 27-day free writing challenge. And so it was 27 days of free writing, which is what I teach, what I practice, what I'm always like doing. And what that is, a poem is read to you. You have some jump off lines from that poem, and then you set a timer and you just write as fast as possible without any expectation, and you don't care about spelling, punctuation, grammar, and you just go. And for the first time, this is what it was like for me to put that inner critic to the side and tap into my creative unconsciousness. And this was the first time that I was allowing myself to get away from that act of performing and all these roles that I have held as I've needed to in performing and being the good girl on the pew and all the things. And I allowed myself to just be. And it changed my life, right? And after 27 days, there were some pieces that were maybe not great. There were some pieces that I literally wrote about shit and were not great. Actually, that ended up being kind of a fun piece about my dog taking the shit. But some of them, it was this thing of like, oh my God, I wrote that. And it then turned into where I continued that practice and I got a little bit braver and it turned into me reading it out loud to a friend and I looked up and they have tears in their eyes, or someone else is going through something similar and I read it to them and they're like, oh my God, that's how I felt. And I now feel seen, and just being exposed then to not only that practice but then also poetry in this way that was, I'm not alone, I feel so seen. And also this practice of giving myself just this small amount of time of putting the lines of a box away and allowing myself just to tap into myself. And so it's turned into this really beautiful thing that I share now, right? Like it all comes back to this seed, whether it takes on limbs as far as expression, or it takes on roots as far as healing or processing, or it takes on, again, limbs of like publishing a book or classes or storytelling events or coaching or all these things that it has like taken on in all these really beautiful ways. It still comes back to this seed of putting that inner critic to the side, tapping into my creative unconsciousness and allowing whatever is within me out onto the page to just be. And so it's such a hard thing to describe because it's like people are like, oh, like you teach poetry. I'm like, I like creative writing. I'm like, no, like storytelling. I'm like, yeah, right. Like it's just like, how do you describe that? And so, yeah, that's really kind of what it all kind of accumulated to and at the core what it is. And it has turned into something that has taken on many forms. And part of it as well too was a huge part too of me like remembering myself and me finding myself and manifesting things, and also just turning into something I'm so deeply passionate about and also we're very hungry for in a world that we are starving to remember ourselves and to also be held by each other remembering ourselves too. Yeah.
It's powerful. There's so much that I love about what you said. The thing that's really standing out to me right now is the process and the experience, really, of putting the critic aside, putting the narrative aside, and letting yourself be.
Mhm.
Because I truly think that critic and that narrative, a lot of times people carry that through their whole life. And we don't understand, sometimes you don't even think that you should be doubting the critic that you're hearing in your head
Yeah.
or questioning the narrative that is guiding your life choices.
Yeah, the critic can
But
sound very like the
often,
critic can sound like a friend. The critic can sound like a companion. The critic can sound like she has your back, and like or that's always been there, and that means it's you, right?
yeah. And there's times when it's not in alignment with who you are or where you're headed.
Mhm.
And so it does need that intentional moment of, we're setting this to the side for a
Mhm.
moment. Let me just sit. Let me
Mhm.
just be. Let's see where this takes us. That's beautiful. That's powerful.
I'm always coming back to this practice of like, I can't have any expectation around it. I have to just let it be within me. So at this point, right, in the height of COVID, I start this practice. Fast forward a year and a half. I now have 4 books of writings at this point. And I knew at this point too, I'm like, I have a book in me. I know that there's something I want to write here. And I also, with this practice, like I'm just writing and then I just don't even look at it half the time. But I know there's something there. Also, too, fast forward a year and a half later, and my life literally crumbled in 24 hours. I'm not kidding when I say I wake up one day thinking I'm gonna come out to my ex and I'm gonna like my bonus daughter will be surrounded by more love and she will be held in more everything, and like I'll have her one day a week and it's gonna be a beautiful conscious uncoupling and everything is gonna happen, and instead it didn't go that way and it was volatile and scary and he took her and I hadn't seen her since, and it like my life had crumbled in 24 hours and I was like, how the hell did this happen? Like how did this happen? And at this time I had a writing mentor at the time where I knew a book was going to be happening. And she was like, okay, I want you to go through all of those books and pick out your 10 best pieces and we're going to workshop them together. And I'm like, great. I love homework. I love being a good student. I've got this. So much fun. No, it wrecked me. I was sobbing through this homework assignment because now I'm actually going through all of these pieces. And as I'm going through these pieces, mind you too, I don't remember writing half of like most of these things because it's kind of you kind of zone out sometimes like doing this practice. And I had written so many pieces that I didn't remember of like how broken my marriage was, how much I wanted to be living in a bus or a van, but my ex didn't want to, how I thought that being with a woman was so much better than with a man. Didn't even know I had written about that. How I loved my bonus daughter so much, but I hated being a stepmom. Like all of these things that I don't remember writing. And then I'm like going through it all and I'm like, so I created this life. So, oh, okay. So I manifested exactly this life as authenticity and everything that we're talking about is there's just so much power when we allow ourselves to just give ourselves a little bit of space to just be that then we also remember ourselves in a way that isn't easy, is really scary, but is so freaking worth it and is worth whatever that cost might be. There's risk to it and there is courage to it, but it is something that is worth doing. And it is something too of like the life that I am living now and how it has unfolded, although has been topsy-turvy and in very many different directions is like a life that I'm so grateful to be living and I wouldn't change it for the world. So
And there's something to be said about the fact that what's my next step in life? Your next step, your truth, your guidance and where you should go was with you the whole time. It's so easy to search for answers on Google or with Chat GPT or in all these different places, but the reality is when we're looking for these answers, we need to look inward.
mhm.
We need to look inside ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I think there's something, and you said something beautiful I didn't call on. Thank you. That was part of it, is like you said, this chasing thing. I think for the majority of my life, like I was totally believing, again, right, this double life, all the things like I was chasing. The grit is all I was tapping into, and like chasing the titles and the marriage and the house, and that like I was doing all those freaking things while still being like doing it in my way or whatever, but none of it was what I actually wanted. I didn't want any of that stuff. It didn't actually feel like in alignment for myself. So of course it all burned down. Of course it literally like crumbled. And now this life that I'm living too it's really scary because guess what? That grit is actually pretty freaking effective. That grit, even though it kills you, it does work. It does have an energy to it. And when it's gone though, it's freaking gone. So now, instead of me chasing, I'm now calling in. And that requires a hell of a lot more trust, a hell of a lot more patience. And it is so much more worth it, but it is very, very like jarring, right? Like when you're just used to running and running and running and then you're stopping, like that is a total, oh, you mean this is what it's like to take a full belly breath? Okay, that's going to take me a second. Oh, this is what it's like to get full oxygen to my brain. Okay, give me a second, right? Like, so that's what I mean is like, it is like so worth it, but it is an interesting of like going from chasing to calling in. It's a shift.
Yeah, total shift. And it's not easy,
Mm-mm.
but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's so much good. I could talk to you for literal days, and we
Days,
could just literally never
just a
stop, and I
retreat.
would
Let's just,
forget about
yeah,
everything.
let's
Yeah,
just we'll just get a cabin in the woods and just talk like squirrels the entire time. Yeah.
it'd be so fun. I'd love to just give a moment to hear if there's people that are listening that want to get involved in some of your work or in some of the stuff that you're doing. What do you do? What is it? What's available?
Yeah. I do have a book that is available for purchase on my website, and I'm sure I can give you like the links and all the little things and stuff too. So, poetry book is From Burn to Bloom. It's a book of poetry, and it's also lovely like to read through, and then it's great where you can just open it up, and it's probably like a poem that's meant for you right there. So a great like coffee table book in that way. I also host classes every Tuesday. I am in Mountain Time in Salt Lake City, Utah, but I alternate between in person and on Zoom. I'm very passionate about online connection and how like yes we are in this technology world but actually using it for the good that it deserves to be. So and it is around this free writing kind of practice that I talked about, and again it's really beautiful to do this practice for ourselves. It's also so stunning to have it be held in safety with other people, so it's a beautiful both like self-care and also a really gorgeous community that has been formed and going to. I also host storytelling events in the fall, winter, and spring. Instead of we're writing, people are just getting up and telling stories based on a theme. It's a kind of similar format to the Moth. They are magic. It's freaking magic. It's so good. I also do like keynote speaking. I do facilitated workshops for, companies, storytelling workshops for companies as well too. Basically just find me on social media, find me on LinkedIn, and we can go from there. And then, and I'm also working on another book right now too. So more to come with that.
Before we lead to the wrap up of the conversation, I would love to give a moment for you to read a piece of your work. And whatever piece calls to you, if you're willing.
Okay, what if I have two? Would you let me do two?
Perfect. Let's do
Would you let me? And then you can choose which one or
Yes,
whatever. Okay,
please.
only because,
Or
and
both.
yeah,
Both.
I'll do both. Well, just because one I had before that I thought of, but then as we were talking, I was like, oh, this one might be fun too. Okay,
Perfect.
so this one I'll read first. And this one is from my book, and it is called I Am Queer. Okay. I am queer because I was never meant to be interpreted one way, because linear is too stifling for me, because linear implies straight lines where my life is written in cursive. I am queer because all of my life I have been told that I beat to the rhythm of my own drum, and that was one of the very few things that resonated as truth for me. I am queer because I was put on this earth in a box with a life mission to remove those lines and be infinite. Because it doesn't matter what I have loved in the past. What matters is I love for the sake of being brave enough to learn what true love is in the first place. I am queer because when I saw the movie with the island of misfit toys, I whispered to myself, home. I am queer because anytime I hear the word should, I twitch and shift uncomfortably in my seat. I am queer because I don't want to stay in my lane, nor be in yours. I want to be in the meadow of wildflowers and tall, soft grass instead. I am queer because I am fluid like a river in a world that claimed me to be concrete. I am queer because being indescribable, being unable to define me, is the closest thing I can give you to a definition of myself, or intentionally lack thereof. Cute.
So good.
Thank you.
My reaction is just me processing.
Yeah, sit with it.
That's
Chew
just
on it.
so
Chew on
powerful.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good.
I think, yeah, I love the word queer and how it gets to be such an umbrella term. And again, like, so it was such a beautiful thing for me to do for myself too, of like coming out later in life too. Like, again, so many pieces I wrote too of like, it's not that I wasn't attracted to men. It's just that I was living on a low fat diet, never knowing the richness of cream until I had permission to taste it for myself. Right. Like, I think there's so much beauty from one baby to another, like of being able to have this like fluidity to find ourselves and also have that be encompassed and queerness that gives us that because what a beautiful life we get to live that we just know less and less every year we live on this world and we get to be more okay with that too, right? Anyway,
Mhm.
I think that was stunning. We could leave it at that, but because this is like queer economy and like work, I have a cute work one I like too. Is that okay? Okay. When you ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I know you want me to respond with some corporate ladder response with lofty goals around my career. But what I want to say, I see myself with an entire set of Italian copper pots and pans that hang from a rack in my kitchen ceiling. I see myself going to sleep every night with my love fighting to turn off the light because we want to stare in each other's eyes for one moment longer. I see myself with a book of poetry that I hold in my hands, and when my eyes search for the author's name, it's mine printed across the cover. I see myself with freckles speckled across my nose and cheeks all year round because I don't go more than a couple weeks without traveling to some warm destination. I see myself sitting on my back porch barefoot, witnessing the sunset showing off with hues of bruised purple and bubblegum pink while sipping slowly on a glass of red wine. I see myself saying no to plans I made weeks ago because I would rather be curled up in a blanket and my nose wedged between the pages of a book. I see myself with a garden in the front yard and no fence, welcoming neighbors and any who want to partake of the harvest. I see myself answering a FaceTime from my friends' kids who want to tell their Auntie Bree that they lost their first front tooth. I see myself with a full belly, full rosy cheeks, a full enough bank account, and an overflowing heart. Tell me where to put that on my performance review. Also, I'm living that
Wow.
life. I wrote that a really long time ago. And
Yeah.
I hate performance reviews. I think they're stupid.
It's so powerful and just paints the picture true. What matters most,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know?
I know that question. Where like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, first off, I have the memory of a goldfish. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing in 2 weeks, let alone in 5 years. You expect me to have that far of a plan in front of me? And also, I know you're asking that question, like, of like, where do you want to do with your like career? And I'm like, girl, I want to be frolicking in the flowers. That's like, you don't want the answer I actually want to give. Like, no. Anyway.
That's the perfect answer. I love it. When people say, "Oh, that filled my cup," I don't say that phrase very often because sometimes I feel like it's thrown around loosely, but this literally has filled my cup so much. So we're heading towards the wrapping up. It's the lightning round of just some fun questions. So, first one, as someone who deals with words a lot, what is currently one of your favorite words? Spoofed. Okay. Okay. What is your favorite way to start the morning? Favorite place you've traveled? No. One or two, just you're totally fine. Okay, favorite food right now. See if we can pick with that. Okay, time for the last question. This is the way that I like to end every episode. But let's say you're in a large building and you get on the elevator and there's one other person on the elevator. And you have a short ride with this person. The other person is your younger self. What would you say to that person in this short ride? I love it. Oh my gosh, Bree, it's been so fun to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on. You're so nice. Thank you. All right. That's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to follow us and Bree on all major social platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure you leave us a review. Until next time, be kind, be bold, be you. That's all for now.